government time. It's so slow and it's really good.
Okay. The meeting of the planning board of the Borough of Somerville for June 22nd, 2020 will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act has been provided, that a copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was 1, posted on the bulletin board outside of Borough Hall, 2, mailed, faxed, or emailed to the Courier News, and 3, given to the clerk administrator. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call, please.
Peter Rosinski.
Here.
Dennis Sullivan.
Here.
Randall Brady.
Here.
Andrea Dare.
Here.
Art Akins.
Here.
Jason Kraska.
Here.
Al Carestis.
Here.
Larry Cleveland.
Here.
Christopher Raddick.
Here.
Bernie Nevada and Ken Utter will not be present this evening.
Pledge I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on the agenda is the resolution for Epic Somerville LLC.
So moved. Second.
Peter Rosinski.
Yes.
Dennis Sullivan.
Yes.
Randall Brady.
Yes.
Andrea Dare.
Yes.
Art Akins.
Yes.
Jason Kraska.
Yes.
Al Carestis.
Yes.
Larry Cleveland.
Yes. Madam Chairman, I'd like to just comment, I attended the ribbon cutting last week, and the line was out the door, and there was a buzz, and I said to the owner, you know, he now has 2 storefronts, and he's welcome to continue east all the way, all the way down to the borough line. So, again, as I said the last time, it's nice that a successful business expands and moves ahead, and I wish them luck.
Okay, land use, Frank Morano, block 21, lot 11, 75 North Richards Avenue, minor subdivision submission. You can bring up some chairs, you can need to stand.
That's all right, I'll extend.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's all right. I appreciate it though. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the planning board. My name is Joe Castor with the firm PSFE and Whitelaw. We represent the applicant Frank Morano. This application is for a minor subdivision with single bulk variance. It is otherwise a completely conforming application. Mr. Morano has done several projects in the town of Somerville. And without further delay, I'll put on our star tonight. Bring my first witness, Mr. Craig Stiers. Mr. Stiers, could you please speak here?
Let's raise your right hand, let's turn in.
Yeah.
Just mark a couple exhibits and you swear the testimony about to give this board the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so just before we start, we're going to mark as A1 the application and supporting docs. A2 is the notice of publication. A3 is Mike's report dated June 14, 2022. And A4 is the Stiers Associates subdivision plan dated December 28, 2021.
You get a chair.
You want to stand too?
Get a chair.
I'll just get up again. So, Mr. Stiers, could you speak to your credentials for the board? I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey and been before this board 1,000 times or more.
Credentials speak for themselves.
We're not happy about it either.
I think Art has his doubts. All right, could you please tell the board about the project? Sure. A4 is the last one?
Yes.
Can you turn that a little bit more this way?
Yep. So the A5 is just a colored rendering of sheet 3 of 3 of your set, just to kind of clarify things. The lot is known as Block 21, Lot 11, has an address of 75 North Richards Avenue. It's located on the west side of North Richards Avenue. North Richards is on the right-hand side of the plan. Putnam is to the north, and
Madison, okay. Madison is to the south, so it's basically middle of the block on the western side. The existing lot's 16,100 square feet, contains a single-family home, an existing shed, a driveway that connects the shed to North Richards. It's got a patio in the back, a walkway in the front, and as you can see, it's set to the extreme south of the property. One of the variances for the property is an existing condition. The house is set 5.13 from the south property line. It's supposed to be 8. So technically, that's one of the variances that we have tonight. And it is in the R2 zone. Minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. Lot width is 50. Lot depth is 100. Front yard's 25. Minimum side yards are 8 and a total of 20. Minimum rear yard is 25. Floor area is 30%, and the improved coverage is 40%. What the applicant's looking to do, obviously, is to subdivide the property. Basically, the minimum lot width from the north, putting the line 50 feet from the northern line, and creating a completely conforming lot. And like I said, the only other variance was the existing side yard, and then the second variance would be for the shed that would be adjacent to the new property line. So instead of 5 feet, it would be 3.13 feet. So that would be the only new variance for the condition. Like I said, the property that he will look to create will be completely conforming. If and when that he builds the house, that will also be conforming. So the other thing is that as far as if you were to look at the surrounding neighborhood, I'll label this as well.
What do you call that?
It's an aerial photograph of the area.
Okay.
And I put today's date on here.
Great.
So again.
Today's date on A5 too?
Well, I labeled it as today's date. Yeah, North Richards going through the middle of the plan here. You can see Putnam, Madison, North Clark is on this side. So here's the block, right? With the red here is the existing property, and this would be the new property line. As you can see from the block that the subject property is within, there's 12 lots within the block. Half of them are already 50 foot wide, between 50 and 60 feet. Even if you were to go across the street, 18 lots in this block right here, they're all but 2 are between 50 and 60 feet. So you can see after the subdivision, if it were approved, it would be more consistent than what it is now. If this were not subdivided, you would have a 16,000 square foot lot. The person, whoever bought it, would have the ability to potentially build a house that would be twice as big as the neighborhood, which I think that would put it more out of character than if the subdivision were to go through. So by subdividing the lot, you actually implement more control. Although there's another house, there's more controls, there's more consistency with the neighborhood if the subdivision were to go through. Obviously, with the existing variance, there's really nothing you can do about it. You can see, a lot of the houses vary from, a lot of them are centered, but you can see some are off to one side or the other. Same thing with the sheds. Although we didn't locate them, I drove around the block. There's a shed / garage here on this lot, a couple down in this location. Again, I didn't measure them, but it looks like they're less than 5 feet or very close to it. So again, with the shed that's in the back of the existing lot, it's consistency throughout the neighborhood. And at this point, Mr. Morano is just looking to subdivide the lot. So that's why we didn't show any proposed conditions right now. There's times where we've shown them and all of a sudden it becomes too restrictive. There's conditions on there. Honestly, we did one for my in-laws probably 12 years ago. And it got so, we put a house on there, it got so, and it was an example house because we didn't have an architect yet. And all of a sudden they got so many conditions into it, they almost had to come back to the board. So what we're saying is that we will comply with the ordinance if and when he comes in to develop the property. We'll give a plot plan, Mike will review it. As far as the conditions that, I mean, we can go through Mike's letter, but as far as those conditions, we would put them on the plan so it carries through. So if Frank builds it, he obviously knows about it. If he were to turn around and sell it, the potential buyer would know all those conditions as well. But at this point, like I said, there's a reason there's no house there. He hasn't contemplated a type of house, but again, it will comply. He has done, as Mike said, he's done a number of houses in town. I think he did both of them on Fairview, on Fairmont, by the
Yeah.
hospital.
By the hospital, 40 and 50 Fairlawn.
Right, so the two houses that are there, he built both of those. He's built one on Arlene Drive.
North Lawn.
The North Auden. So there's a number of houses he's already done in town. And I think, Mike's statement itself that, shows his credentials that are very good. So if there's any questions, I can go through Mike's letter.
I just have one question. The driveway is not going to be shared?
No,
Is there any
no, it's,
idea for that at all?
no, I don't believe so. There's actually a curb cut on this side. So it may or may not be opposite. There is an existing driveway cut.
Oh, okay.
So, and I think, I personally have a shared driveway. With all due respect, I'd rather have my own. So,
No shit.
I didn't know it was curved.
yeah. And then the other thing is, most likely the house will be a 4-bedroom house, 2.5 bath. It'll most likely have 2-car garage if possible.
Attached or
Attached, yeah.
attached?
Yeah. So again, that's where you wouldn't,
Can we just have the expert testifying right now? Everybody's gonna have a chance, so I'm kinda having a hard time. I'm sure the transcriber is as well, trying to keep everybody together. Thanks.
so, I mean, that's what he's contemplating, but he has not come up with a house at this point. So,
Any questions?
So right now, we're just dealing with creating a buildable lot. I envision this was probably sold as 2 lots, with the vision of eventually being 2 lots. The second lot was just never built.
yeah, actually, before, when I was getting ready for this, I meant to look back to the original subdivision or with the creation of it. And, that has been the case in some of the lots we've done in the past where people have bought 2 lots. And they, whether they merged or they still exist, they coexist. But at this point, yeah, I mean, you can see the way this was set up.
So this was the Victory Home area, so right after the war,
Right.
GI, GIs had the GI built, so, and the land wasn't that expensive back then. And I envisioned a lot of people bought 2 lots. Because they wanted maybe for their kids someday or whatever, but it makes sense to put a scaled lot there.
Right.
And most of the homes in that neighborhood are on the 50.
Yeah.
And that's why that house is set back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of the driveway.
Yeah. And it's honestly, it's a very hot area. My niece actually lives just back on Putnam, and it's young couples. I mean, it's kudos to Somerville, let me tell you. So
Let's go through Mike's report,
Sure.
just to, so the public can hear it.
yeah,
Mike, you just want to run through?
Yeah, I'll just run through that. I guess we can start on page 5, correct?
Yep.
And on the parking, I had parking and circulation. We've had some issues with the plot plans with stormwater runoff. So the first condition I said should approve this is that the plot plan, which this is a grading plan, would be submitted for plan review to make sure the stormwater gets to the street. We do curb face discharge, and therefore it doesn't impact neighbors. The natural grading is to the street.
Yep.
So it's not going to be a challenge from a building or a grading to make this happen. It's just making sure it does, so we don't have any impacts
On the neighbors.
Stormwater runoff.
Okay.
Finished floor, we've had a couple issues, maybe about 20 years ago, 15, where the finished floor of the house was built 3 or 4 feet higher than the surrounding houses. It still met the overall height, but the house looked out of place because they put an 8-foot high basement or something. It predates me, but I caught the end of it. So I have a comment to make sure that the house is in keeping with the neighborhood, being the first finished floor blends in. So the house doesn't stick up.
And I think in that case, I think it has to be this case because, like you said, it drains from back to front, but there's no storm drains anywhere, so we gotta get the grade right, so you don't want it up too high, so. Yeah.
And then item 3 was the shed. My understanding you're relocating the shed a couple of feet to make it comply, or?
After talking to the owners, they would prefer to leave it, and that's why we're asking for the variance, so.
It requires 5 feet setbacks, it's at 3 and change, correct?
Is the shed a shed or is it a one-car garage or?
No, it's more of a shed. I
How
mean, it's
tall
been
is
there a
it?
long time. 10 feet maybe.
Then item 4 was some of the sidewalk. It needs a little repair, some of it's moving, walk, some of it's cracked. It needs, the question's gonna be some of the sidewalk, should the board grant this is on both lots, so it's not just on one side. So some coordination of that. I understand what you're saying down the road, but again, this is called the street trees and the sidewalk. I'm not sure
Yep.
how the phasing of that's gonna occur. Should the board grant it. So that's 4. Utility poles are the other side of the street. You only really have 2 ways. We can't put private lines on the street. Ideally, all utilities underground. So either the power company drops another pole across the street, it goes underground. But you end up with a pole by itself, which I think is unattractive. So my personal opinion is have the wires run overhead to the new house.
And there's a hole right across the street, so.
Correct.
Which is typically done throughout the
Typically done
neighborhood.
at time, but I'm saying, if we say it has to be on service, and the utility, PSEG said, put a pole in on the other side and run it, and I don't think
No,
that's
the last thing you want is another pole.
Right.
Okay.
There's on the next page, page 6, there's a mature tree, what's proposed to be the lot, it looks to be dead based on my site inspection.
There's very little life to it, but.
Right. So it's just a question of when that tree, at some point it becomes a hazard from a fall hazard, so.
Yeah.
Whatever
Is
the
it the
word.
one in the front?
Yes, it's a
That's an
mature
ash
tree.
tree?
I don't know if it's dead. I couldn't find the leaves on it. I don't know what.
There are a few on it today.
Okay.
Well, there's been a big concern about the ash trees
Yeah,
being blighted
yeah.
and,
I don't think it's an ash though, but,
oh no, I'm saying the plan says 30-foot ash.
oh, okay, sorry. It didn't look like one when I drove by, that's how bad.
That's what it says.
You know, I didn't even think about that, yeah.
So then we have the question that it's 2 street trees or there, either you plant the trees or, there's no utility poles, so there's no.
So you could put street trees on that side?
Yes, so I don't know if street trees are proposed by the applicant or.
I think there's one in front of the existing house.
When I saw, I didn't see it, I saw it went back from it, but it wasn't a street tree. The question is, again, this is subdivision done, what's the coordination here? Should the board require 2 street trees? Because you don't with the existing lot of post line, so.
Yep.
The lot numbers, the
So what are we
lighting,
gonna do with that?
So
well,
does
we
the
have
owner,
to see what Craig.
The owner.
He's just about done, so what,
okay,
I'd
so
say
you're gonna
circle
go for,
back.
okay, all right.
The lighting, just to comment that the lighting should be in accordance with the ordinance. The tax lot numbers, basically Brendan or the tax assessor will assign numbers. They look reasonable, if both numbers change, and I think what Craig's proposing is that will be that acceptable. 2 of the subdivision is by plat or by deed. And then I have a comment that there is an exception of pointed property corners. I'm saying that they should be set because down the road it becomes a problem. The property could waive them, but I'd rather see them installed because it becomes a headache. And then we have the planning comments on the variance, which is basically the side yard setback and now the shed location. Then I clarified the stormwater runoff, and it's basically the plot plan on page 8 under E1. And then I have a note that should be called construction demolition debris should be disposed of in accordance. The sanitary sewer lateral connection will require a permit fee from the SRPSA, and I will inspect the connection from my office to approve this. And then I have a comment 4 that I've seen Frank's developments. I think they want a mechanic street too. I think they don't believe, right? So he's, in my opinion, the house is fit the character of the neighborhood. I mean, I said this comment because technically it's a C variance. The board could say, we want to see the elevations because it's a C variance. I'm saying, I don't know, with Frank, I'm comfortable, we'll get the elevations right in the house when we take care of everything.
So these are all future requirements, whether this is built.
No,
The
they
plot
don't.
plan is, the requirements of the sidewalk and the street trees, you know,
Well, I think we have to delineate that between what's gonna happen built upon versus what happens when you do the subdivision and what has to be done to
yeah.
those whole.
I think it makes sense that the street trees and the sidewalk be addressed immediately upon the existing house, because the argument's gonna be, I'm building a house, I'm not putting the sidewalk to rip it up, and I'm not gonna put a tree in where the driveway's going. So it makes sense, in my opinion, that the existing house be brought up by a certain time frame.
So the new lot basically.
And then the lot be addressed with the lot, so that he's not, if we say the trees have to go here, and then 6 months from now, that tree's in the wrong location.
Right.
And it's, so I,
The other thing we could potentially do is build it or bond it. Because if you, say for example, you say the street trees and the sidewalk, you can obviously do it in front of the existing house, but you don't want to do the sidewalk now and then put a house up. You know what I mean?
well, that's what I'm
That's what he's
saying.
saying, he just
I'm
wants
saying in the
the,
plot plan,
Okay.
I'm saying
We're saying the same
street tree,
thing.
the sidewalk, all that can be addressed during the plot plan.
Yes.
but in the
Works.
existing, or what's going to be the new
Right.
existing one, that can get done right away.
Yeah, if the existing house is sitting there, you get that work done, the only thing is the dead tree, in my opinion, should be handled sooner than later.
So all conditions relative to the existing home that is going to remain should be done now.
Yes.
With the exception of the removal of the dead tree.
Well, the
Everything
dead
else-
tree's on the other, is in
Dead tree's on
the
the
new
new
lot.
lot.
Yeah, but you're still saying.
I'm saying
So
that
you also
tree
want that to
should
come
be
down,
removed
yes.
in some reasonable time frame, not 6 months, because technically it's a hazard, it falls. It's a
That's
big
right.
tree, it's
Yeah,
not a
and it's
small
on the
tree.
road, it's in the
Right,
front.
it's a big tree, so, yeah, and I'm saying everything else on that newly developed lot, should the board approve it, will be addressed in the plot plan.
I agree.
With the applicant, in terms of completing finished floor elevation, which we'll address on that plot plan.
Yes.
Drainage and all of
Right.
that, okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna open it up to the public, just for any questions about the site.
I'm Tara Chickadee, I live at 66 North Richards. My question is, has anybody checked the water flow on our street since you guys had it redone about 2 years ago? Because that side of the street, the only storm drain is down towards Adams, and the water flows for a good 2 to 3 hours after a rain, as it is today. The stormwater coming down the street. That's my big concern, because of the basement flooding issues that we have in the neighborhood, and if that is not checked, that storm drain is not gonna be able to handle water.
Yeah, I agree with you, the runoff from the street is the pitch is very low. And to make sure it doesn't hurt anybody, and adversely hurt the neighbors, we're getting roof leaders out to the street. So that technically there will be some additional runoff because of the roof of the house.
Right.
The best we can do with it, because the road's the road, right, the street, is to get it out there to curb face discharge, so it moves the same time as all the rest of the drainage.
But it doesn't address the flooding issue on the road, that's what I'm saying.
Right, but I understand what you're saying, but the road grades, the road drains, I agree with you, the pitch is marginal. It doesn't drain in 15 minutes. I
No, it's
agree.
hours beyond the storm, yeah.
I agree.
And at the top end, Hope Street is flooded when you're coming onto North Richards, so.
But I don't think we can ask the applicant to fix the road.
No, my concern
condition.
is that they're gonna be another, when you
Right.
talk runoff, you get another sewer drain there. So the water from the top of the street is draining more at the top than going all the way down to the bottom. That's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, she's right, the first inlet's at Adams,
Yeah,
so it's 2 blocks away.
and I'm on the corner of Madison and North Richards, and, so the water's all in front of my house, and the basement floods, and we have all issues with everything.
Could there be an issue with that storm drain at Adams?
We go down there and clean it out with a rake, we make sure all of us in the neighborhood do it, yes. But the people that live in the house do not clean it, but on the surface, we go any debris, because if there's any debris, it just stops completely.
So if there's that much debris on an average storm, what's inside? Well, no,
Yeah,
so the
that's a good
question is,
question,
can we get somebody to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, in reality,
Because that might,
I
if
think
it's
so,
possible,
yeah,
the borough should look at spending the catch basin, to cut the distance down. I mean, that's
Yeah.
obviously, the catch basin is closer, one was put in, you wouldn't have that drainage path this long.
I guess probably to get out there and TV it, stake it. see what's
Yeah, we'll
going
see
on.
it.
So-
I mean, that's,
So let me ask the engineer, how much more runoff?
You won't see it.
Like, is
It's
it's
honestly-
negligible from what's there now to what, if we put a house on there that's
Yeah.
directed directly to the street, it's not gonna increase it
I mean,
tremendously.
if you did a worst case scenario complicated,
It still is negligible. It's really a drainage problem, not
Yes.
a
And-
building problem.
I'll tell you, I probably might think, but I made a copy of the drainage maps for Somerville. And
It's negligible. Okay.
well, I mean, the thing is there's nowhere to put it.
Yes.
It's, if we were, because that's what I was thinking, if there's a drain going by, you'd put it in the drain, but it's 2 blocks away, and both directions.
Yeah.
So on the high side, it goes towards the hospital, it doesn't even come down Richards. You would think the way that thing runs, it would just come down, and it's a big road, it would come down and connect, but it goes east and west, and not down Richards at all.
It happens all over
Yeah,
Somerville,
yeah,
trust
I
me.
mean,
Yeah,
the problem is the road is very flat, less than 0.5% probably.
Yeah.
So the drainage is
It's
slow.
slow drain.
Ideally, if the borough could put in more catch basins, then it would help the situation immensely, because it would speed it up. Because it becomes
Oh, get it off the surface.
Okay.
Right.
All right,
Speed
well,
it
that
up,
would be
because
nice.
it's catch.
I think that's a good recommendation to the council.
Recommendation
Yeah.
back.
I'm thinking
That would be
of
great.
And then one more, you mentioned he built the house on North Auten, and you're saying that if he goes further and builds the home, it's gonna be at the same level. How is North Auten at the same level? They're little Cape Cods and there's this huge 2-story house.
The
that's
first floor
total-
would be at the same level.
Yeah,
Meaning
first
the
floor.
first floor level, he can't raise it up with like a porch that's
Have 8
5
steps getting up to the house.
Okay,
We've
so
had a
like 4
situation-
steps is acceptable?
The finished floors of the steps going in match the community, the other houses, so that you don't have something sticking out of it, an eyesore, something doesn't match.
The size of the house is done by zoning regulations. which
No,
already
I understand,
exist,
but my yard butts up against the home on North Auten, so I could see the elevation difference in the backyard, and when I walk the dog, that's where my question came from.
Yeah, it's just to make sure, if you look at the ordinance, it talks about the height, 2.5 stories, there's nothing in the ordinance saying you have to match elevations. So when you're dealing with infill and existing housing, it's, in my opinion, the elevation of the new house should at least somewhat match, so that you don't have this huge difference. And why does it match? Because in the new houses, a lot of people like an 8, 9 foot basement.
Oh, then they
So
put
that-
it down.
They get groundwater or something, so they just push the house in the air and they say, we match, we meet the 2.5 stories, we meet the height, so that the borough can't say anything. So because of this relief requested, I always put elevations for the first floor to make sure that the house is at least in keeping with the character of the area.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna close. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a second thought. or
Could you just get
direct
your
thought.
name and address, please?
Certainly. My name is Roberta Harmon. I live at 70 North Richards Avenue. And I also am a commissioner on the Environmental Commission. So I have concern about street trees, as well as the dead tree that's on the empty property. That is not a street tree, that's on the property. And it has been not alive for a while. As a resident of North Richards for 20 years or more, and knowing that that neighborhood was built in the 1950s, as my home was, back then there was very little need for large driveways and or garages. Many homes do not have garages. I built my own. I would respectfully request that if a home is built, that it is built with a 2-car garage, so that the more space for cars to be off the street would be preferable to me as resident, because everyone has at least 2 cars in that neighborhood, if not more. And so I think the property would be able to accommodate double
Easier to sell with a 2-car garage.
I'm sorry?
Easier to sell with a 2-car.
Well, yeah, everybody has at least 2 cars, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Susan Lacerda, 76 North Clark Avenue. So my backyard butts up, half of my backyard butts up to the property with the house on it now. My concern is the water that's going to come to North Clark. And I know you say it goes to the street, but I can tell you right now, every time it rains, the backyards on North Clark get so bad that my neighbor who butts up to this property had to put in drains in his yard to get the water because it was just overflowing. So I just ask that when we do this, or if you approve this and it's done, you can't just assume it's going to go to the street and out, because North Clark gets the rain water coming from Richards as it is today. So that's all I want to point out.
Okay, but the testimony is that it slants, the property does slant from the back to the front, right? Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna close the public session. Any comments, questions from the board? So, do we wanna go through and see what the owner's going to agree to with these, or so we agree? That's in here.
I'm sorry. From Mike's report.
From Mike's report. 3 trees and
The street.
you're fine with everything?
I'm fine with all the conditions. I think that, I went through it the same way when when I wrote the report. It's consistent, and you can group them together, kind of like exactly what Mike said. The street trees and the sidewalks, it's across the board.
Okay.
The rest is really contained in the plot plan.
And the plot plan has to be approved by the engineer,
Yeah.
which includes the drainage.
It's really tough to do site improvements on the vacant lot. Nothing's constructed.
No, I totally get that,
You end
yeah.
up screwing it up sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's counterproductive.
No, definitely, as long as the drainage and the plot are looked at before anything gets.
So you're agreeing to put the 2 street trees at the appropriate time as opposed to a contribution?
Yes.
Yeah, this is gonna be the time, that's what I think the board should need to discuss, is the time for
Do we want
taking
the
the tree down, the dead tree,
Yep.
and when the sidewalk and the tree on the existing house lot should be installed, constructed.
Well, I think that the tree should come down as a condition of this approval. Because from what testimony I've heard, it's dead, so it's not alive. Yeah, it's not alive, and it is literally on the street, so if it's that big a tree, it does fall and take out wires and stuff, so that's.
So, as a condition of approval,
As a
must
condition
come
of
down
this-
within
30 days.
Well, yeah, 30? Well,
60 days.
60 days. 30 days, I mean, you gotta hire somebody in like,
60 days.
it's the
So
whole
60
summer.
days of the adoption of the resolution.
Yes,
There we go.
That's one.
and then, do we want the street trees, 1 street tree and the sidewalks for the, I don't want to call it existing, in front of the existing house to be taken care of right away? Or do you want to wait till the construction goes in and then do it all?
To me, it makes more sense to do both houses at the same time. Unless the sidewalks are completely destroyed, unsafe.
How bad are the
No, I
sidewalks?
mean,
There's some tripping hazards because of the big tree, it walks a little bit, there's some crack in the sidewalk.
It's gotta be addressed, but would it be easier and more efficient to simply do it all at the same time? To come in
I think it would
and
be
then
more-
put the tree in on the back end.
I think it would be more efficient.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Because if
Yeah,
the
the
curb cut
only thing-
changes, then, I mean, everything's gonna get done.
yeah, the only thing I would say is that we put some, call it 12 months, 18 months, because if they don't build.
Upon complete, okay.
Because they have the ability, they're just subdividing, so they technically don't have to build anything. So if we actually want that done, we should have a timeline.
Agreed, that makes sense.
And give it enough time,
Okay, so what do you want to?
I think just the one that I think, I'm not mistaken, the sidewalk and the apron are relatively new. So,
In front of the existing house?
yeah, so,
I don't know what there's something about the sidewalk. We have one piece of sidewalk.
Alright, we're gonna have to swear you in, whoever's gonna
Are you
take
done?
the testimony. It's okay. Swear the testimony you're about to give the board the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
What's your name for this?
Hi, Barbara Nicholas, Bob and I are owners of the house.
Great, thanks,
Okay,
Mark.
so I'm not, we're not sure,
So
by
there's
the
the sidewalk in
There's
front
one
of
piece that we're gonna address and fix, but I don't know what else you're talking
and
about.
your existing driveway is relatively new, right?
Yes, it is.
Right, so that's why I was gonna say there's kind of a dividing point. So anything south of the driveway, we can fix now and leave the rest for the plot plan.
I'm fine with that.
That's good. And I would just put the street trees in at the same time, so
Right.
the same maturity.
Yeah.
And I believe that road was not done with the aprons because it was done by the water.
Yeah, that's what we're saying, when you're finished
Up there,
everything.
The one's gonna be in front of yours.
Yeah.
So you're just talking two trees.
Yeah, two trees,
So
one in
one in
front
front
of
of
each
one
house.
lot, one in front of the other. Yeah.
Why are they putting,
So,
why are they putting a tree in front of our house? They're putting a
That-
tree in front of our house?
Yeah, it's part of the
Yeah.
street tree program,
Part of the what, I'm sorry?
street tree program.
Every 50 feet, the ordinance requires
We
a
had a
street tree.
tree that came down, from the town with Ida.
Oh.
Uh,
Yeah, so we're gonna give you
It
another.
should be in the pipeline for replacement anyway.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, it should be in the pipeline for replacement. If they took out a street tree, the borough should be replacing it. They should have a plan already.
Yeah,
To
well, no one,
replace it.
no one's contacted us about that.
I can provide
Right,
that.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
the
then,
rule.
we just need a new one in front of the new lot.
so wait a minute, if the borough is gonna replace the,
They should be.
well,
Took it down, it was a street
well,
tree.
what I'm
they took
getting
it
at, do they need to, are they responsible for
Well,
it?
that's what he's saying,
No,
for
that's
the
what I'm
one.
saying.
They would just need the one in front of the new
So
property.
now we just need one.
You just need
As
one.
long as the county is replacing that and one did come down and they're replacing.
I'll
That-
provide for two.
Well, it's on the same thing.
Yeah,
Again,
that's why I said,
Yes.
we didn't know that there was another tree
Right.
before.
See, that's why I said, I thought there was a tree line.
Okay.
Friendly government on
All right,
this
so
side.
as long as the dangerous tree is coming down,
Within 6 days of the adoption of the resolution, the sidewalk associated with the existing dwelling, which is south of the existing driveway, will be completed now. Do you want to put a time period on that?
repair within 60 days, I would think. I think it's just one piece there, so.
The rest associated with the new lot development will be at the time of the plot plan. 2 street trees will be required, one in front of each home, one of which may be done by the borough in connection with the street.
Exactly, let her finish. See, you wonder why I say what I say.
Something else I would recommend is, I'm sure your ordinance provides for it with maintenance, but I think we should put it as a condition of approval, if they'll maintain the property, weeds, cutting, everything until they actually
Yeah,
develop.
the subdivision, sure.
And then I can put in here the applicant and the owner to contact the borough to look at the storm drains in the vicinity of the property, blockage, something like that.
I'll reach out.
I would also say, reach out to the neighbors, Miss, I forgot your name. Ms. Lacerda, maybe we can look and see what they're talking about with the neighbors' houses, just to understand what's going on. Couldn't hurt. Right?
Anything else?
I just think it's a good subdivision, it's consistent with the neighborhood. It prevents somebody from buying that oversized lot with the existing house, removing the existing house and putting up a McMansion where it doesn't belong. And I think it's a good use of the land. We don't have a lot of land in Somerville. It's an urban sized lot, and I know the builders, previous work, and they do fit in. I mean, it's gonna be different because it'll be a house where there has not been a house ever. But I think it's well thought out. I can't wait to see the finished product.
I'll second that. Based on the conditions.
Peter Rosinski.
Yes.
Dennis Sullivan.
Yes.
Randall Brady.
Yes.
Andrea Dare. Yes. Art Akins.
Yes.
Jason Taylor.
Yes.
Al Caressi.
Yes.
Larry Cleveland.
Yes.
Okay. We're not done yet, guys, we're not done yet.
What's our?
I'm going to open up the meeting for items not on the agenda. No items?
Well, unless
Well, that's
Talking about Bridgewater.
That's
Oh.
public. That was
public.
That was public.
Public.
Yeah, we'll get to
I'm
that.
gonna close the public part. I have no comments.
Let me start like.
Yeah, all right, so we're gonna have a discussion. So you guys can stay or go. We're gonna be talking about Bridgewater property right now.
Yeah. It has come to the borough's attention that, Bridgewater has received interest in the old Mack truck property on Route 22. There's a series of office buildings that are just east of the Mack truck facility. And the intention is to build large warehouses, sort of on the Amazon warehouse scale.
Hey guys, we're kind of having a hard time hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At first, it appeared it would be going to the Bridgewater Planning Board, but part of the land in question is not zoned for warehouse. Part of it is, but it's multiple lots, and from what little I know, and Mike will jump in when I speak. Part of the lot in question, or lots in question, need a variance. So that would then put it under the Bridgewater Township Board of Adjustment. To my knowledge, there's no application in front of them yet. They have to, I guess, retool it based on the denial of the planning board. Our concern is, warehouses generate truck traffic. All right, it's on Route 22. All right, but there are trucks. But Port of Newark is to the east. The trucks are coming from the east. They're traveling west on Route 22. And the warehouse is on the east side of Route 22. How do they get there? Well, it's my fear that they go left on Van Dorn Avenue, right on Union Avenue, barrel past Adams Middle School, barrel past Vanderbilt School, make a turn on Gaston Avenue and head up that way to get on 22 East. That, to me, is the only logical way they can do this. So, we asked Mike to take a look at the application, what little we have from Bridgewater, and we're in the process of preparing a response because there's very little residential impact to folks in Bridgewater. There may be a handful of houses on Monroe Street or Arbor Glen, that's an impact. But the Bridgewater Zoning Board is not representing the Somerville resident. We are. So at this point, I'll ask Mike to comment a little bit, but like I said, I actually reached out to the school board today as well because they may be, their property at Vanderveer may abut this property on the other side. So they would, again, be, invited to the zoning board meeting. So it's in the early stages right now, but I don't see how those trucks are gonna get there without using the Somerville Road. It's either gonna be Gaston, Grove, Bridge, or Mercer. And we don't want 24/7 truck traffic on any of those streets. Mike, you can fill in the blanks.
Thanks, Mayor. My understanding of the application was submitted to Bridgewater, it was reviewed for completeness, the same thing we do here, and it was deemed to be incomplete for a couple of items, which I don't know what the items are. And then it's determined that it's a zoning board application, which doesn't matter. The completeness is the completeness. It doesn't matter. My guess is they're going to go through because they've already done all this tremendous work that they're going to address the completeness items, get deemed complete, and be put on the agenda. I think that's the normal way of doing this. I don't think they're going to pull the application and just leave because they need it. They didn't do the noticing right, or they did their taxes. Paying their taxes wasn't submitted. It was something like that. It was administratively found to be not complete. So I think there will be an application in front of the zoning board, and frankly, from the borough standpoint, it's a much better situation because the proofs are much higher because it needs a D variance and a C variance. So that means it's not a permitted use. When you have a permitted use, there's a presumption that the road system and everything so associated can accommodate that. That's why you can't say they're permitted use. You got to do a traffic study. You find a traffic study is doesn't work. Well, then the lawyer's gonna say, well, then you shouldn't have permitted the use. So there's a presumption that the roads and infrastructure can handle the permitted use. In this case, if it goes in front of the zoning board, it's not a permitted use. Therefore, the traffic is what the mayor is paramount, and it could be the basis for a denial because of the higher threshold.
But the roads are our road issue, it's not their road issue.
I understand, I got it. But
How
at
do we
least-
give, like, do we go give testimony to the fact that you, I mean, what are our recourses?
Well, we just did the last week or two, I've been doing some research, and there was an email thread, I think Tony got you, if you look at your emails. The state plan commission is jumping on board because this is becoming a 5-alarm fire throughout the state. Many communities are having problems over the challenges that the mayor had brought up and others. And I emailed policy documents, a draft, looking for comment. Basically, the state planning commission is going to be actively involved in citing these because they feel, at least if you look at the draft documents, there have been a lot of inappropriate locations of these warehouses. They go into lower income areas, they're 24/7s in truck, there's air pollution. So there's a whole equity issue of where these are being cited, and that's what's bringing up because a lot of communities, many communities, especially in South Jersey, are having the same issue of the quality of life of having trucks going down the road 24/7 for a 280,000 square foot or warehouse is 36 foot tall. So documents you have, I had recommended or thrown out that the first step is we digest this to see where the application goes, and I think it'd be prudent for the planning board to write a letter to the zone, should stay to the zoning board, outlining concerns that Somerville Planning Board does, and I also think the councils can do the same thing. Maybe it should be a joint letter, and I think that Somerville has to be actively involved in that application, go to the meetings, and I think the regional center should be involved because the question, it's not to Somerville, is this appropriate for the regional center? The regional center is here, is supposed to be a cooperation with 3 communities to make a better place, a more vibrant community. And I don't know if this works for any of the communities, but we have to see the application. But I agree with the mayor. I don't know how this traffic gets there. It's a terrible location for it. It's on a state highway, but you can't get it more restricted. You physically can't make it more restricted than it is. It's basically got access with one direction. Everything else is U-turn central going through residential areas. So I think we have some time on that because it's not being complete. And if it's a zoning board application, the Bridgewater is going to have 120 days to hear it once it's deemed complete. Should it be deemed complete? So we have some time on that.
Should our zoning board assist us with Bridgewater? We're the planning board, but we have a zoning board also. Should they also piggyback on this letter? They have.
Right, the
expertise
zoning
also.
board is really quasi-judicial, so they're handling cases that are, for some reason, not handled through planning. I would say this is a planning issue.
Yeah, very much so.
So I think the planning board should be the lead, saying from a regional center, from a planning perspective, from a bird's eye view, why this is bad plan. So I think it should come from the council.
What does the county say?
I might suggest that our attorney and the zoning board attorney and the borough attorney chat about who the best board is. Like I said, I'm been involved in the school board as well, because even if they're not a 200-foot property, trucks are going to impact the Vandenberg corridor. Kids walking on Gaston, which is a very busy cross street, and walking and driving on Union Ave, which has been a contention for years to get the speed limit reduced there anyway. So, I mean, the more active we are, the more voices are heard from Somerville, the best.
Yeah. I think we work on drafting up that letter. I think we're all in agreement on where we stand on the actual project and the results of what would happen. I don't think we send anything until we see the actual application once it's deemed complete. And then we send it, and into the regional center, you know, you can send it to whoever as a notice, but it is gonna require us or whoever it is showing up at that meeting as well, not just
Right.
sending a letter in that is drafted up and saying we did our part.
And they
But I think
can't,
that's the first.
yeah, they can't really consider that. So, I mean, your attorney's gonna say that this is very nice, you know, thank you, Somerville, but.
It's not.
Be here.
It's not testimony at the end.
Exactly.
So
Still-
I think we work on drafting one just so they have it, and you know, we're not blindsiding anybody. But you know, at the end of the day, I think we have to if this is deemed complete and it goes to zoning board and we want to contest it, we have to show up at a Bridgewater meeting.
And I will reach out to Scarlett Doyle. I do believe she's the planner for Bridgewater and both boards. And I will voice the concerns and hopefully she can let us know where the status of the application is. So that, I agree, Jason, if the application goes away, there's nothing for us to do.
This
other
one.
than- This one,
This one.
other than
The land is still there.
request that Bridgewater rezone this to not allow this in the future. I don't think it's appropriate zone
Yeah.
plan.
I think we also need to explore restricting the weight on certain roads.
Yes.
I know Adamsville Road from 28 to 22 has a weight restriction if you drive down. So they won't be using Adamsville Road, interestingly enough. We need to look at the Gaston Avenue. We can't tell the state what to do, but we can sure restrict our own road from William Street to 22. Also Bridge Street and Grove. I got a note very late in Kevin that there's apparently you go and apply through the DOT or something. Let's look at the process because it's gonna take some time to do that. We're gonna have to and I think that's a top priority. Whether this project goes through or not, we're going to see more and more activity in this region coming up from the south. They can't go down Bridge Street because of the trestle. I don't know where they're going to go. So I've seen many huge trucks going down Main Street on a Friday night, which is inappropriate, but we can't do anything about that. We can sure do something about the roads that go through neighborhoods. And the primary one is Gaston Avenue. So I would suggest that we look at that as a primary tactic, whether this project goes through or not.
Mike, would we be privy to any documents that the zoning board in Bridgewater would have, like a traffic study?
Yes.
It's
we're-
all
public
Because I would love to
Well,
pick that apart.
we're gonna get,
Because they're going to assume 90% of the trucks will be coming from Pennsylvania, which is ludicrous. They're going to be coming from Port Newark.
all the
Like, well,
documents.
look, if you come down 287, you can't get there. If you take 287 south, you cannot get on 22 west. You have to get off at Union Avenue and come all the way up Union Avenue by Bridgewater Promenade, and then where's the natural turn? Yes, that. So any truck coming down 287 can't get there unless they go on
Okay.
22.
So they'll be in the same
Yeah,
boat.
so I think we're all in agreement that this is something we have to, that doesn't work for this town.
I don't
so-
think we should be too aggressive with Bridgewater. I think we should mind our own business, put our own ducks in order. Let's get our streets squared away. Let's see if we can get some weight restrictions on it. That may have an impact on Bridgewater. And just tell them as a regional center partner, we want to preserve the integrity of our neighborhoods. And if they want to put that in, that's okay, but they're not going to run the trucks through our neighborhoods. I think we need to be,
Well, I
I would
think
be
we-
very reluctant to say at this point in time, let's be aggressive against Bridgewater, because right now, it's still in the preliminary.
We have to be prepared though for
We have
when
to be
this
prepared.
application
Well,
hits.
And I don't want to be in a position where it's like we're taking some kind of retribution. We restrict the weights on our streets, that may have an impact on their traffic study when they take a look at it more carefully.
And it will also have an impact on the applicant as it come in there.
Precisely.
Right, but I think it's reasonable to tell Scarlett that the borough has.
Informally
Severe
concerned.
reservations, yeah.
This is a hot ticket item, simply because we can't see how the trucks are gonna get there without going through Somerville.
I agree.
I think that's a fair statement to tell Scarlett.
Yeah.
Where does the county fit in all this?
The county has to review it because it's a regional center, all applications
Right.
get reviewed.
Right.
They might, if it's not impacting county infrastructure or county roads, they're gonna give guidance, but they don't have a lot of teeth in it because of that. Unless it does impact county infrastructure or county roads, then they can put reasonable conditions on it. But they will absolutely comment on this.
Mike, the bridges over 22, are those state DOT, they're not county?
Not state.
How does the state react to large trucks on there? The Route 28 is really a secondary state highway. It's not a primary, it's not a major road.
I agree, they're most likely going to be a major development application for DOT thing, but that's the tricky thing here. The traffic is actually less than the car traffic.
Oh, yeah.
So you look at the facility, typically you look at a major application is when you do an extra 50 or 100 trips for the application. Then it's major, the DOT wants to look at it because you're substantially increasing traffic. In this case, the traffic is actually decreasing because you're trading in 1 million cars for 500,000 trucks. So that's I don't know what the DOT is going to say because there's an argument made that the traffic's actually less.
These are the employees that are also gonna be.
There's less, right now there's about 330,000 square feet of professional office building. They're proposing 278,000 square feet of warehouses.
So it
That
has a lesser requirement.
278,000 square feet of warehouses has less employees and workers than the office buildings. So you look at it from the actual movement inside and around the facility, it's actually less with the warehouses. However, obviously we have trucks coming in,
Right.
which is now not happening. So you're trading in a lot of cars for a lot of 80,000-pound trucks. Less trucks, obviously, than cars. So I'm curious to see how DOT would look at this.
Plus the hours are different.
Because it's 24/7.
Right.
The offices are done by 6 at the latest.
Like,
I think we, look at putting it all together, give a heads up over there that, we have serious reservations about it. And let's see when it becomes, deemed complete and take a look at.
Showing up for the meeting.
yeah, I mean, once it's deemed complete, then
Public information.
then we have to do our homework. That's when we have to write a letter, because it's deemed complete, it's going to be heard.
Yeah.
That train is sailed, once it's deemed complete.
Right, precisely. Now, council has discussed this, we talked about it on Monday night. I think the next step is to move toward taking some restrictions on some of the roads and leave it at, start from that standpoint and not even mention the warehouse on, because we just need to look at it from the traffic standpoint.
I think based on what I'm reading from the State Planning Commission, the tidal wave of warehouses is hitting the state hard. And I think Dr. Brady said this, or maybe it was Mayor, if it's not this application, we will be dealing with
It
this.
is.
Because obviously the properties are for sale and they're looking for another use.
Either within the borough or the immediate surrounds, we will be dealing with this.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, in the near future.
And if this one falls through, Bridgewater could very well rezone it and we're back to square one. Because they just approved their other, center of excellence over on the other side.
Well, they modified that considerably, so.
So they're sensitive to public, just that we're not their public. But we have to be.
Yeah, I mean, the rub here is that the
Because we've seen it before.
No, I would agree with you, but I still say that on balance, I'm very concerned that they're gonna look at how many people are we making upset in Bridgewater.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be the calculation. So
A
people
handful.
short, but we're screaming that we're gonna get killed there, and it's not their concern.
So we cut off the pipeline.
But there's nothing we can do about that.
Pipeline.
Well, no, and I understand that, but I'm saying, I'm just very worried, I don't trust it.
We need to take all of those streets right now, or as fast as we can, limit the weight capacities. And that takes the whole thing out. And it's not just Gaston, it's gotta be the next couple of streets, because next thing, these things will be trucking down William Street to the next block.
Williams
the next
already
block.
is, Williams is restricted.
But I think we also have to remember though, you're gonna have 18-wheelers coming in, but you're gonna have the little Amazon vans moving out. And so it is a beginning to not have That's true.
eighteen-wheelers, if they come off of 287, they're gonna be coming down 28. So they can't get out to 22 unless
Unless
they
they
go
come
out
to
of
our streets.
Bridgewater Street. So this makes it their problem.
Precisely, we cut off the
Yes.
blood supply, and the little vans usually stop around 8 o'clock at night. I mean, they're little vans. and they
There's a
come
lot of
into
them.
town.
There's a lot of them.
I get those
Yeah.
little vans.
We
all
start,
the
we
time.
start somewhere.
And that's, there's not a warehouse near here, and we see the little vans all the time. So I think it's something, it's not just the 18-wheelers, it's a big problem, but I think
You might keep
it's
us,
just the wrong place
keep
for
us
this type of
posted
thing.
with your discussions with Bridgewater, and I'll do the same with the council.
I'll reach out to Kevin, I'll reach out to
And we
Scarlett.
will report
About the weight.
Council meeting and start the ball rolling.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else not on the agenda?
Only one thing.
Michael, shut up.
That's what Columbo used
Say
to
the top,
say.
Michael.
Sorry. I was hoping that maybe the next planning meeting, or 2 or 3, we can deal with the issue of the kitchen use.
Yes.
potential.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Yes,
just throwing it out to you, not for tonight, I'm just saying that,
I read an article, I think.
no, I don't know the article, I just want to say that we should be addressing this, we have to come up with some recommendations on this issue at sometime, in my opinion, in the near future, should the board want to render their opinion to the council.
Perhaps when we split the amount of sugar in those cupcakes or something like that.
Why would you want to do that?
I don't
That's the
know.
best part of it.
No tractor trailers picking them up.